rising prices of grocery. Some callers were downright weird. They would ask Putin where he sleeps and whether he likes dogs or cats. These questions were intended to soften the edges, to make Putin seem like a lovable leader. But nowadays, the focus is on foreign policy, especially after the war in Ukraine. I guess, choreographed or not, one thing is clear. This press conference is a window to Putin's mind. It tells you about his intentions, his mood, and his thoughts on the past year. A bit like Putin's very own Spotify Wrapped. In West Asia, tensions are flaring up again, this time between Israel and the Houthis. On Thursday, Israeli strikes hit Yemen. The target was the capital of Yemen, the city of Sana'a, and the port city of Hodeidah. The strikes targeted power infrastructure and oil facilities. 9 people were killed, 3 others were injured. Israel has called this operation successful and said that these were targeted strikes.
The IDF conducted precise strikes on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructures in Sana'a, which the Houthis have been using in ways that effectively contributed to their military actions. Israel will not hesitate to act in order to defend itself and its citizens from the Houthis' attacks.
Videos from Sana'a show the impact of the attacks. Power stations on fire, damaged silos, leaks from the plants, and firefighters trying to control the damage. The attack was in response to a Houthi strike. Early on Thursday, the Israeli army intercepted a missile coming from Yemen. The target was central Israel, where a school was damaged. No one was injured, though. Now, Israel is citing this as the reason to attack Yemen.
The missile force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a significant military operation, targeting 2 vital and sensitive military targets of the Israeli enemy in the occupied Jaffa area using 2 Palestine II hypersonic ballistic missiles. The operation achieved its goals successfully, by the grace of Allah.
So the Houthis strike Israel and the Israeli army hits back, and it triggers a series of tit-for-tat attacks. But why Yemen? Because Yemen is home to the Houthis. This is an armed group, much like Hamas in Gaza or Hezbollah in Lebanon, and all 3 of these groups are allied. They're all backed by Israel's greatest enemy, Iran. And these armed groups, Hamas, Hezbollah and Houthis, are together known as the Axis of Resistance. After October 7, the Houthis threw in their lot with Hamas. They began fighting a proxy war against Israel. The first target was the Red Sea. The Houthis would attack any ship that they thought was linked to Israel. The attack started last November and disrupted global shipping. Then the Houthis changed tack. They started attacking Israel directly. They struck buildings in Tel Aviv. Of course, Israel could not have that. They were fighting a war in Gaza. The last thing they needed was attacks from another enemy, so Israel decided to respond. They struck Yemen. It was a message to the Houthis, basically, to stop their attacks. And all of this happened months ago. And since then, the tit-for-tat strikes have been on. Now, let's look at this from Israel's perspective. Their first target was Hamas. So Israel eliminated the top leadership of Hamas. They flattened the Gaza Strip. And they tried to demolish Hamas as a military force. Then they turn to the Hezbollah, kill their leader Hassan Nasrallah and hundreds of other Hezbollah fighters with pager attacks. Israel carried out continuous strikes in Lebanon, leaving Hezbollah as a weakened force. So 2 groups out of 3, Hamas and Hezbollah, in the so-called axis of resistance, decimated. The third group, the Houthis, remain a challenge though because of multiple reasons. The first reason is the location. Remember, both Gaza and Lebanon are on the border with Israel, but Yemen is far away. So a distant target for Israel. That's the first challenge. The second challenge is the cost of engagement. The Houthis control large parts of Yemen. They have a stronghold to launch new attacks. But Israel may not want a direct military campaign in Yemen. It would stretch their resources. Reason number 3 is global shipping. The Houthis are at a vantage point. Look at this map. Yemen gives them access to crucial routes. The Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden both lead into the Suez Canal. It's the busiest waterway between Asia and Europe. Around 12% of global trade passes via the Red Sea, also 10% of seaborne oil. Any conflict here could derail global shipping supply chains. Ships will have to take a longer route. Insurance covers will go up, and we, the consumers, will have to pay for it. So any conflict in the Red Sea will affect the whole world, which is why Israel is sticking to targeted strikes. The question is, for how much longer? If the Houthi attacks continue, Israel will be forced to escalate, and that may lead to a whole new front in this war, one that could draw in other regional players as well. Whichever way you look at it, it's the opposite of ideal. You wouldn't want to be Iran right now. Your allies are being toppled, your proxies are weak, and your people are struggling to make ends meet. It's a dangerous moment for the Iranian regime, arguably their weakest point yet. Let me tell you about the latest problem, an energy crisis. An energy crisis in Iran. Tens of millions of Iranians are facing power disruptions, that too in the middle of winter. Temperatures in Tehran are close to 0 degrees, so imagine having no power. The government has also shut down certain operations like schools, offices and banks. 13 power stations have also been shut. The idea is to conserve power. On Monday, the shutdowns led to a protest near Tehran. People blocked a main highway near the capital. They also burnt tires on the road. I know this may sound a bit strange to you. Iran has the second largest natural gas reserves in the world. Also the 4th largest crude oil reserves. How can such a country face power shortages? Because the industry is underdeveloped. You see, having reserves is not enough. Those reserves have to be extracted, they have to be processed, and finally they have to be distributed. And that's where Iran struggles. Their power industry is plagued by years of corruption, plus Western sanctions prevent modernization. And the result is this: shortages and blackouts. This has a domino effect on Iran's economy. Industries need power to function. Vehicles need fuel to transport goods. So power shortages drag the economy down. And it's happening at the worst possible time for them. Because Iran's economy is already struggling. Their currency, the rial, has dropped 10% since last month. Look at the exchange rate. $1 equals 777,000 riyals. $1 is equal to 7,77,000 riyals. To put that in context, in 2015, it was just 32,000 riyals. And this was during the nuclear deal talks. Inflation also remains high. It was nearly 50% in May 2023. It has gradually dipped to 37% this year, but still it's way above acceptable levels. Reports also say that 30% of Iranians live in poverty. All of this can be largely traced to one problem, and that is sanctions. You see, Iran cannot sell its oil in the open market. Only a handful of countries buy it. China alone makes up 90% of Iran's oil exports. If the sanctions are lifted, Iran could sell oil to more countries, meaning more money in their coffers. But there's a problem. Iran must pause its nuclear operations for the West to lift sanctions. Basically, Iran must agree to not build a nuclear bomb. In 2015, they did manage to strike such a deal. But then came Donald Trump. First, he pulled out of the nuclear deal, and then he reimposed the sanctions. Now he's back, and chances are that he will pick up where he left off. Unless, of course, Iran agrees to negotiate to give up its nuclear ambitions. That's what Joe Biden wants as well. His Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has said that it's been a bad year for Iran. He wants the regime to focus on its people.
There's no doubt this has not been a good year for Iran. One choice it could make, and should make, is to focus on itself and focus on trying to build a better, more successful country that delivers for its people, which is clearly what most Iranians want, and to stop getting involved in these adventures or misadventures throughout the region and beyond.
It sounds simple enough. Focus on your people, rebuild the economy, don't pursue the bomb, and the sanctions may be lifted. But here's the problem. Iran's regional position has weakened considerably. In Syria, it has lost an ally in Bashar al-Assad. In Lebanon, its proxy Hezbollah is struggling. In Yemen, the Houthis are under attack, and in Gaza, Hamas has been dismantled. So Iran's regime is pretty vulnerable right now. It has already been attacked twice by Israel. With Trump's encouragement, they could go further. The Israelis, they could go further. So Tehran finds itself in a tough spot. Do they pursue the bomb to protect their regime? Or do they seek sanctions relief to help their people? Both options are fraught with risk. And Iran's supreme leader knows this. He tried to send a defiant message this week. This is what he said.
With the actions taken in Syria and the atrocities committed by the Zionist regime and the US, as well as the support they are receiving from others, they thought the resistance has ended. They are heavily mistaken.
Frankly, Khamenei himself is part of the problem. He's almost 85 years old. Rumors are spreading about his health. Last month, some reports said that he was in a coma. So naturally, there are questions about his succession. Who will take over after him? Khamenei has not picked anyone yet. But his son's name has been doing the rounds. It remains to be seen if the people of Iran will accept him. Because remember, this is not the 1980s anymore. Times have changed. And we saw an example of that in 2022. Iran's morality police picked up a 22-year-old woman, a woman named Masha Amini. What was her fault? She was not wearing a hijab properly. Her death triggered nationwide protests. We saw portraits of the supreme leader being attacked. So clearly, the society is changing. But does the regime realize that? Recently, Iran's parliament passed a new dress code, a new law for the dress code. It called for harsh punishment if women expose their hair, forearms, or legs. Iran's president opposed that law, and this week they decided to pause its implementation. This tells you about the internal tussle. The hardliners still dominate institutions, including the military and the Revolutionary Guard. But young people in Iran want freedom, and they're not scared to take on the regime. If these two groups clash, anything could happen. The regime may try to avoid that. But as we've seen this year, revolutions can grow out of nothing. And Iran, of all countries, should know that. Vantage continues after a short break.
This is the Makar Dwar of the parliament behind me, where a complete ruckus was witnessed early today morning, when Congress and BJP MPs virtually came face to face I'll now explain to you what exactly happened. So here in this particular compound, you see the inside enclosure where the security keeps us outside the media, and this is the enclosure from where the MPs enter inside and go inside the Makar Dwar. This is the main entry for MPs to go inside the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. What happened today was that there were over 100 MPs who had completely filled up this enclosure. These were the BJP MPs who were protesting, asking for the Congress to apologize for the insults that the Congress has purportedly made to Bhimrao Ambedkar all over the years. This protest was on for almost 15-20 minutes. I actually spoke to Anurag Thakur, who was standing here. I even saw Mr. Pratap Sarangi in fact standing here and giving media bites. All was well till then. About 100-150 MPs, I say, of the BJP were standing here with placards in their hands and protesting against the Congress party. What happened after that is that from behind me, from there came the Congress delegation. Now Congress was there at Bhimrao Ambedkar statue, which is behind this old parliament building. As you can see, Priyanka Gandhi was marching along with the Congress MPs and was walking from there with the Congress and India grouping MPs. When they came here, India grouping MPs, they actually entered from this particular barricade. They entered from this barricade, the Congress MPs, and came into a face-to-face confrontation with the BJP MPs who were already parked here. So what we saw is where this point right now, where you can see a few MPs standing. But almost for 10-15 minutes, there was a complete shouting, slanging match. They were sloganeering against each other, standing face to face, showing their banners. Congress MPs had Mr. Ambedkar's posters in them. They were shouting, Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim. The BJP MPs were saying, Congress, Maafi Mango. And this continued for at least 15 minutes before the Congress MPs, Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi, both sat down exactly at this point. And the BJP MPs were in front of them. They sat down and the protest continued. Some of the Congress MPs, in fact, stormed through this particular area, through the BJP MPs, and went and stood on top of those boundary walls of the Makar Dwar as well. You can see those visuals where at least 20-25 Congress MPs stood on the boundary wall. One even climbed on top of that statue, which you can see. One of the women MPs I saw of the opposition stood up there as well. Now, in the middle of all this melee, what has happened is that there has been some jostling because the Congress MPs after that wanted to get inside. Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi wanted to take this route and go inside the parliament, and the BJP's MPs were in front of them. This is where it seems Pratap Sarangi has got injured, as well as Mr. Rajput, two BJP MPs who've been rushed to hospital. In the pushing and jostling, they both got injured, and that is what the BJP's claim is, that Rahul Gandhi was actually trying to push through and pushing MPs, and that is how Mr. Sarangi has got injured. The India grouping MPs are in fact saying they were not pushing anybody, they were just trying to get inside parliament through the Makar Dwar, and they are saying that the BJP MPs were actually blocking their path and they were not letting them go inside, and that was unparliamentary, undemocratic. Both sides have their accusations, but now what we are hearing is that there could be an FIR against Rahul Gandhi. BJP wants to lodge an FIR against him for injuring Pratap Sarangi, and there was this video which has gone viral since then of Pratap Sarangi sitting on a wheelchair near that Makar Dwar, and Rahul Gandhi going to him and inquiring what really happened, and Nishikant Dubey, the BJP MP, saying, Sharam karo Rahul Gandhi, and Rahul Gandhi saying, Maine inko nahi mara, inhone mujhe dhakka diya. So it's a game of allegations and counter allegations. The Congress says they were, Mallikarjun Kharge, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi were pushed by BJP MPs. BJP MPs are saying Mr. Sarangi and Mr. Rajput, their two MPs who are in hospital, were actually pushed by Rahul Gandhi and Congress MPs. I think this is not going to end here. We have CCTV footages. You have seen these big CCTVs atop the old parliament building which face the Makar Dwar, and maybe the truth actually lies in these CCTV footages when they will be analyzed by the CISF, and we'll know for sure that what had really happened when at that time, this whole thing happened. And you can still see some of the BJP MPs and some of the opposition MPs, and this is a matter of hot discussion now in parliament exactly what happened in the morning, and we'll know maybe the truth in a day or two when these CCTV images are accessed. But right now the BJP is very, very aggressive. It wants to lodge an FIR against Rahul Gandhi. Senior MPs of the BJP have gone and met these two injured BJP MPs in hospital. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called up both Mr. Sarangi and Mr. Rajput to inquire about their health after what happened earlier today morning. Makar Dwar becoming virtually like an akhada in the parliament building today morning. This is the Makar Dwar of the parliament behind me.
So Iran is struggling, and Iran's challenges will add to global uncertainty, which is already hurting economies the world over. India is no exception. The Indian economy is also facing headwinds. The stock markets crashed again today, posting losses for the fourth straight day. The Indian rupee hit an all-time low against the US dollar. $1 was worth 85 rupees today, the lowest it has ever been. The markets are reacting to decisions made by the US Fed, the Federal Reserve, that is America's central bank. It has slashed interest rates. This will make loans cheaper in America. Now, usually markets cheer such decisions, but not this time, because this time the Fed's rate cut has come with a warning. Inflation still remains a worry, a big worry. The US central bank says it wants to remain cautious.
We can therefore be more cautious as we consider further adjustments to our policy rate. We know that reducing policy restraint too fast or too much could hinder progress on inflation.
So inflation remains stubborn in the United States. It's a growing concern in India too. The days ahead could be tough. Indian households may feel the pinch because inflation is likely to surge. If you are in India, brace for a price rise. Top FMCG companies are set to increase prices. FMCG stands for fast-moving consumer goods. These are your essential items, things that you need and use on a daily basis, things like sugar, wheat, oil, coffee. Let me show you a report. Take a look at this report on your screens. From tea to edible oil and soap to skincare creams, everything is about to get more expensive. Prices are set to rise between 5 and 20%. It is the steepest increase in 12 months. But why are companies raising prices? Because production costs are rising. It takes more money to make these same products. Raw materials have become more expensive, so companies have to spend more to manufacture the same goods. I'll show you some numbers. Prices of coffee and cocoa have jumped by 70%. Wheat flour is up by 40%. Palm oil increased by 30%. When production costs increase, companies are left with little choice. They shift the added cost burden onto the consumer, to you and me. And that's exactly what's happening now. This is bad news for all of us and a setback for the RBI. RBI is the Reserve Bank of India. It's been trying to bring down inflation. Last month, there was some relief. Inflation began to ease last month. In the month of November, it stood at 5.5%. It was a sharp drop from October when inflation was well above 6%. The RBI's target is 4%. So the headline numbers suggest that overall inflation in India is coming down. But when you look at food inflation, it's a completely different story. Food inflation in India remains quite high. In November, it was well over 9%. And now prices are set to go up further. So don't expect immediate relief on this front. And the impact of high inflation is not just limited to households. Inflation affects stock markets too. It can influence investment decisions, especially for long-term investors who make big bets on the stock market. Just think about it. What happens when prices go up? How does it affect you? It puts extra pressure on your finances. Your monthly budget gets stretched. So you cut spending on goods which are not strictly essential. And because your budget is stretched, you also end up saving less. The former RBI chief spoke about this. That's Shaktikanta Das. He stepped down only last month. He said that price stability is crucial for economic growth. When inflation is under control, people have more financial flexibility, they invest more, and this in turn boosts the economy. So stable inflation is the bedrock for sustained growth. This is what Shaktikanta Das said, although towards the end of his tenure, he could not stabilize inflation. Now it is up to his successor to finish the job. Our next story is from China. The Chinese economy is also under pressure, but President Xi Jinping is prioritizing his military. Despite China's economic struggles, he's pushing for nuclear dominance. New details have emerged about China's nuclear program. Beijing now has more than 600 operational nuclear warheads. Last year, China had 500 such warheads, so in 12 months, they've added 100, and they're not done yet. Beijing aims to have more than 1,000 warheads by 2030. Experts say this is the most dramatic military build-up since the Second World War. So what is driving China's nuclear expansion? Our next report has the answers.
In 2021, these satellite images from China's deserts had shocked the world. They revealed how quickly the the Chinese were ramping up their nuclear capabilities at 3 locations. Beijing was building at least 250 new long-range missile silos. The message was clear: China's nuclear policy is undergoing a dramatic transformation. Minimum deterrence is no longer enough. China wants to project strength by significantly expanding its nuclear arsenal. 3 years later, alarm bells are ringing once again. The Americans have put together a report. It explores the scale of China's nuclear expansion. The findings are alarming. As of May this year, China had over 600 operational nuclear warheads by 2030. This number could grow to at least 1,000. What's driving this buildup? One possible reason could be Taiwan. Xi Jinping has asked his military to be war-ready by 2027. More advanced capabilities, especially on the nuclear front, would bring the PLA closer to this goal. Despite the expansion, China's arsenal is modest. Both Russia and the US have over 5,000 nuclear warheads each. China's goal to secure 1,000 nukes may seem small in comparison, but it is still significant. Beijing is trying to achieve some clear objectives. It wants more powerful weapons which can strike a wide range of targets. It also wants weapon systems which enable multiple rounds of counterstrikes. How does Beijing defend this buildup? China says it is securing more nukes for self-defense. Chinese officials say they will still adhere to a no first-use nuclear policy. But the Americans remain wary. Even though the US still holds the upper hand. While China's buildup is alarming, it is progressing at an uneven pace. Recent shakeups in the PLA are a sign of this. Since last year, at least 15 top officials have been removed for corruption. Going by one assessment, every branch of the PLA is affected by this wave of purges, including the top brass. In June, former Defense Minister Li Shangfu and his predecessor Wei Fenghui were expelled from the Communist Party. Both military leaders were labeled corrupt. Last month, another top official, Miao Hua, was suspended and placed under investigation. Again, over corruption allegations. Some of these cases involved China's rocket force. This the same wing of the PLA tasked with manning China's nuclear missiles. The purge of military officials may not be over just yet, but this is, at best, a temporary setback. China's nuclear build is real and a serious security challenge. It could easily spark a new weapons race among the world's most powerful nations.
Napoleon said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake." But what if that mistake is too funny to ignore? That's our dilemma right now, because Gurpatan Singh has released another video. And once again, he is targeting Russia. And once again, it's a gem. Pannu says Putin is helping India target Khalistanis. He also says Russia was involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Listen to this.
Against pro-Khalistan Sikhs is a death knell for Russia. In the light of newly discovered information, in May 2023, Russians hacked Shahid Nijjar's Telegram account and provided this information to the Indian agents, resulting in the assassination of Shahid Nijjar on June 18. Simultaneously, Russians hacked my Telegram account and gave this information to the law officials.
Did you hear that gong sound at the start? Guess where it came from? The entrance music of The Undertaker from WWE. I'm not making this up. You can check it later on YouTube. But stolen BGM aside, what Pannu said is dangerous. He's offering $25,000 for a tip-off. On what? On the whereabouts of two diplomats. One is India's ambassador to the US, Vinay Quatra, and the second is Russia's ambassador to Canada, Oleg Stepanov. Pannu wants to know about their public engagements. Now, there are two things to note here. One, the big money being offered. This is almost 21 lakh Indian rupees for a tip-off. And two, the whole idea of tracking a diplomat. It is problematic. It's a veiled threat to their security and safety. But I guess this is Pannu's new strategy, to drag Russia into his bogus conspiracy theory. Just one word of caution though, maybe avoid tall buildings and balconies. Russia has condemned these statements by Pannu. They're also taking this issue up with Canada. Last week, in fact, Russia's mission in Toronto was targeted by Khalistanis, and now they want to track the Russian envoy. Moscow says this is equivalent to plotting a terror attack. So they are demanding more security, but don't expect Justin Trudeau to help out. The true scale of his support to Khalistan is just becoming evident. We have some new information from Canada. It shows an increase in asylum claims of Khalistan sympathizers. Since the pandemic, these claims have shot up. Now look at the numbers. In 2020, just 28 Khalistan sympathizers sought asylum in Canada. In 2021, the number went up to 144, and in 2023 to 620. This coincided with a big change in Canadian politics. In the 2021 election, Trudeau could not secure a majority. He needed help from the NDP, the New Democrat Party. It is led by pro-Khalistan leader Jagmeet Singh. After this alliance, the asylum numbers shot up in Canada. Is that a coincidence or a policy change? Only Prime Minister Trudeau can answer. And just to be clear, there is no active separatist movement in Punjab. That's all in the past. So I'm not sure what these asylum seekers are fleeing really. Just looking for a free ride, I guess. But either way, the Trudeau-Jagmeet alliance is now over. Jagmeet Singh has abandoned Justin Trudeau's sinking ship. Even his own MPs are going against him. Last week, Trudeau's Deputy Prime Minister resigned in protest. This week, 15 of his party MPs asked him to step down. Yet, the Prime Minister is marching on. His strategy is to ignore the problem. Reports say Trudeau had a number of year-end press events lined up. A lot of them have now been cancelled. If elections were to be held today, Trudeau would be trounced. His party is at 21% support. The opposition Conservatives are at 43%. They are in a hurry to hold elections. The Conservatives pushed 3 no-confidence votes against Trudeau, but all of them failed. Do you know why? Because other parties, including the NDP, opposed it. They wanted to keep the Conservatives out. But on Monday, Jagmeet Singh changed his tune. He finally asked Justin Trudeau to step down. So chances are the next no-confidence vote may succeed. And when is that? Most likely in late January. The Canadian Parliament has adjourned for holidays, so there is temporary respite for Trudeau. It's really a question of how he wants to go. Does he want a quick exit, or does he want to drag it out? Whatever he chooses, one thing is certain: Justin Trudeau will not be Prime Minister beyond 2025. Moving on to the United States, which is also not acting against Khalistanis, but they have imposed sanctions on 4 Pakistani entities. This includes a state-owned defense agency. And what are these sanctions for? Pakistan's long-range ballistic missile program. All sanctioned entities were associated with this missile program. The US wants to stop it, hence the sanctions, which makes you wonder, the US has been a key provider of weapons and military aid to Pakistan for years. Why do they have a problem with their missile program? The thing is, they don't. These sanctions have less to do with the ballistic missiles and more to do with China. Pakistan's deepening relationship with China. Washington does not like it, so it is applying pressure. They've done it before. Our next report tells you what happened after that.
The United States has imposed sanctions on 4 Pakistani entities, including the National Development Complex, or NDC. This is Pakistan's state-owned flagship aerospace and defense agency. What are the charges? Contributing to Pakistan's long-range ballistic missile program. The announcement was made by the US State Department. The targeted entities include the National Development Complex in Islamabad, Akhtar & Sons Private Limited, Affiliates International and Rockside Enterprise. All of these companies are based in Karachi. But why are these sanctions happening now? According to US officials, these entities worked together to advance Pakistan's ballistic missile program. In a post on X, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said, and I quote, "The United States is designating 4 entities that are contributing to Pakistan's ballistic missile program. We have been clear and consistent about our concerns, and we will continue to engage constructively with Pakistan on these issues." The United States says the NDC worked to acquire items to further Pakistan's long-range ballistic missile program. The other 3 companies worked to supply equipment. Washington has raised concerns about this. The United States sees these procurement activities as a global threat, which is why it's sanctioning these entities. The measures include freezing US-based assets of these entities and banning Americans from doing business with them. Pakistan has now responded to these sanctions. Islamabad called the move unfortunate and biased. A statement from Pakistan's foreign ministry warned that these actions would harm regional stability and accentuate military asymmetries. Pakistan conducted its first nuclear test in 1998. Currently, it has around 170 warheads. The NDC is responsible for the development of its ballistic missile program, which include the Shaheen missiles. These missiles are nuclear capable. Islamabad has also refused to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which aims to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. The US says it's acting against proliferation, but there's a large geopolitical context here, and that is Pakistan's growing ties with China. This is an alliance that has been a long-standing concern for the United States. These sanctions may be a means to apply pressure on Islamabad, particularly as Washington seeks to contain Chinese influence in the region. And this isn't the first time the US has taken actions like this. In 2023, Washington sanctioned 3 China-based companies, accusing them of supplying missile-capable items to Pakistan. The question remains, how will Pakistan respond? Will the sanctions slow down Islamabad's missile program, or will it be business as usual? Pakistan and the United States were once all-weather friends. In fact, Islamabad remains a major non-NATO ally. But as Pakistan chooses its big brother China over its old BFF, it looks like the US may not be taking it too well. The sanctions may be a start, but it could become a major flashpoint in the ever-evolving US-Pakistan relationship.
In today's world, apparently being a financial expert doesn't take much. You don't need degrees, you don't need years of experience, you don't need credibility. All you need is a social media profile and a good camera, maybe even some flashy graphics, and then you can be a financial influencer, or finfluencer as they're called. You'll find them everywhere. On Instagram, YouTube and TikTok, some of them have millions of followers. They share their stock picks. They talk about investment strategies. They make predictions about the market. More importantly, they make it look easy, like making money is a hack. But is it really? Is it that simple? A new report in India looked at this. It looked at stocks that influencers, financial influencers recommended. This was from 2018 to 2022. And here's what it found. 72% of these stocks underperformed. What does that mean? It means that these stocks yielded returns less than the market average. And these were sold as the hot stock picks. This is what the finfluencers promoted. They said, put your money here and you'll make a killing. So a lot of people followed, but it went bust. And these are not isolated cases. This has become like a cycle. Finfluencers predict a huge gain, their followers jump in, but the market follows its own course and the stocks start falling. Take the example of Ravindra Balu Bharti. He is a YouTube finfluencer in India. He has 2 YouTube channels, and beyond that, he and his associates ran an unregistered business. They lured inexperienced investors. They gave them investment advice. They offered trade recommendations. This entire business was illegal. They did not warn the investors of the potential risks. They sold multiple plans to the same client. They also violated rules. So now India's market regulator has jumped in. We're talking about SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India. SEBI has banned Bharti and his company. They've been barred from accessing the securities market. This is until the 4th of April. SEBI has also slapped a fine on them, a fine of 9.5 crore rupees. Again, this is not an isolated case. Multiple finfluencers have faced similar action in India, like PR Sundar, Mohammad Ansari and several others. In fact, SEBI also announced a broader crackdown recently, tweaking regulations for finfluencers and even removing the content of 15,000 unregulated entities. Basically, they want all financial influencers to fall in line because, first of all, What these finfluencers are doing is not legal. Not everyone is authorized to give formal investment advice, like what stocks should you buy and where you should put your money. Only registered entities can do this. But finfluencers are not registered. They have no legal right to advise you. Then why do they do it? Because they make money in the process. They get commissions from brokerage firms or referral fees. But most of them don't follow regulations. They are not bound to protect your interest, and you cannot hold them accountable. So even if you lose money, which you most likely will, they'll keep minting millions. That is why the regulators have intervened. They want financial influencers to register themselves. In the meantime, what should you be doing? Should you avoid finfluencers altogether? Now, we're not saying that all of them are a problem. Some of them may just be educating and informing their viewers, which should not be an issue. But you have to be cautious because it's your money at the end of the day. Remember, no one can predict the market with complete accuracy. So the key is to do your own research. Make sure that you understand the stocks that you're investing in. Look beyond the glitzy reels, take informed decisions, and remember this rule. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. This is an important day for France and for Gisèle Pellicot, a woman who went on from being a victim to a symbol of strength. We've told you about her story before. Her husband, now former husband, drugged and raped her. Not only did he do it himself, he invited dozens of other men to violate her. Since she was drugged, she did not even realize what was happening to her. This went on for more than a decade. Then the husband was picked up in some other case, and during the police investigation, this sordid tale came out. It turned her world upside down. It shocked the world. The case went to court in September this year, and now the trial is over. Dominique Pellicot, the former husband and one of the worst sex offenders in French history, has been given the maximum punishment, 20 years. 50 other accused men have also been found guilty. What does the verdict say? How did Gisèle and her family respond? And can this shocking case change how we talk about sexual violence? Here is a report.
Most of the world did not know what Gisèle Pellicot looked like, but that changed on September 2nd when she opened the doors to a historic trial. Soon, her face dominated the Parisian streets during marches. Posters of her face were pasted on buildings, and the image of Pellicot, standing with her head held high in a courtroom, became a symbol of bravery across the globe. Pellicot is the 72-year-old retired grandmother whose husband, Dominique Pellicot, drugged her, sedated her, raped her, and recruited dozens of other men to violate her, to inflict unimaginable sexual violence on her for over a decade. Her months-long case has stunned France and the world alike. Pellicot, who has since divorced her husband, pushed to make this historic trial of 51 men public. Now the trial is over and the verdicts have been levied. Dominique Pellicot has been given the maximum sentence. He has been sentenced to 20 years in prison. All of his 50 co-defendants have been found guilty as well. The long list includes a nurse, a soldier, a journalist, a prison warden and delivery drivers, aged from 26 to 74. 47 men have been convicted of rape, 2 of attempted rape and 2 of sexual assault. They have received jail terms of between 3 and 15 years. When Gisèle Pellicot left the courtroom, she was greeted with cheers.
Vantage continues after a short break.
This is the Makar Dwar of the parliament behind me, where a complete ruckus was witnessed early today morning, when Congress and BJP MPs virtually came face to face. I'll now explain to you what exactly happened. So here in this particular compound, you see the inside enclosure where the security keeps us outside the media, and this is the enclosure from where the MPs enter inside and go inside the Makar Dwar. This is the main entry for MPs to go inside the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. What happened today was that there were over 100 MPs who had completely filled up this enclosure. These These were the BJP MPs who were protesting, asking for the Congress to apologize for the insults that the Congress has purportedly made to Bhimrao Ambedkar all over the years. This protest was on for almost 15-20 minutes. I actually spoke to Anurag Thakur, who was standing here. I even saw Mr. Pratap Sarangi, in fact, standing here and giving media bites. All was well till then. About 100-150 MPs, I say, of the BJP were standing here with placards in their hands and protesting against the Congress party. What happened after that is that from there, from behind me, from there came the Congress delegation. Now, Congress was there at Bhimrao Ambedkar statue, which is behind this old parliament building. As you can see, Priyanka Gandhi was marching along with the Congress MPs and was walking from there with the Congress and India grouping MPs. When they came here, India grouping MPs, they actually entered from this particular barricade. They entered from this barricade, the Congress MPs, and came into a face-to-face confrontation with the BJP MPs who were already parked here. So what we saw is where this point right now, where you can see a few MPs standing. This is where the Congress MPs and the BJP MPs came face-to-face. The CISF could not build a perimeter between them because, CISF doesn't really want to touch any MP. But almost for 10-15 minutes, there was a complete shouting, slanging match. They were sloganeering against each other, standing face to face, showing their banners. Congress MPs had Mr. Ambedkar's posters in them. They were shouting, Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim. The BJP MPs were saying, Congress, Maafi Mango. And this continued for at least 15 minutes before the Congress MPs, Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi, both sat down exactly at this point. And the BJP MPs were in front of them. They sat down and the protest continued. Some of the Congress MPs, in fact, stormed through this particular area, through the BJP MPs, and went and stood on top of those boundary walls of the Makar Dwar as well. You can see those visuals where at least 20-25 Congress MPs stood on the boundary wall. One even climbed on top of that statue, which you can see. One of the women MPs I saw of the opposition stood up there as well. Now, in the middle of all this melee, what has happened is that there has been some jostling because the Congress MPs after that wanted to get inside. Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi wanted to take this route and go inside the parliament, and the BJP's MPs were in front of them. This is where it seems Pratap Sarangi has got injured, as well as Mr. Rajput, two BJP MPs who've been rushed to hospital. In the pushing and jostling, they both got injured, and that is what the BJP's claim is, that Rahul Gandhi was actually trying to push through and pushing MPs, and that is how Mr. Sarangi has got injured. The India grouping MPs are in fact saying they were not pushing anybody, they were just trying to get inside parliament through the Makar Dwar, and they are saying that the BJP MPs were actually blocking their path and they were not letting them go inside, and that was unparliamentary, undemocratic. Both sides have their accusations, but now what we are hearing is that there could be an FIR against Rahul Gandhi. BJP wants to lodge an FIR against him for injuring Pratap Sarangi, and there was this video which has gone viral since then of Pratap Sarangi sitting on a wheelchair near that Makar Dwar, and Rahul Gandhi going to him and inquiring what really happened, and Nishikant Dubey, the BJP MP, saying Sharam karo Rahul Gandhi, and Rahul Gandhi saying maine inko nahi mara, inhone mujhe dhakka diya. So it's a game of allegations and counter allegations. The Congress says they were, Mallikarjun Kharge, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi were pushed by BJP MPs. BJP MPs are saying Mr. Sarangi and Mr. Rajput, their two MPs who are in hospital, were actually pushed by Rahul Gandhi and Congress MPs. I think this is not going to end here. We have seen.
Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. French President Emmanuel Macron visits cyclone-ravaged Mayotte as residents urge for more aid. Airbus tests a new kit which can transform an aircraft into a firefighting plane. And Santa Claus hopes for a peaceful world in his annual Christmas message. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1998, US President Bill Clinton was impeached. He became the second US president to be impeached. This was for trying to cover up his affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. He was acquitted in 1999 after a Senate trial. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
President of the United States, now pending.
And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear?
It is therefore ordered and adjudged that the said William Jefferson Clinton be and he hereby is acquitted of the charges in the said article.
Es que no consigo que me coja el teléfono, ¿sabes? Sí, sí. Sí, ¿no? La segunda y la cuarta.
Good flow at the back, continuing flow.
Greenlam Laminates presents CNN News 18 Primetime Studio.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan and we are coming to you live from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio presented by Greenlam Laminates. Now, it was an ugly turn to the Ambedkar showdown saga at the Makar Dwar earlier in the day, this Thursday, at the entrance of the Parliament, just ahead of the House about to commence proceedings. Now, at about 10:45 a.m., the NDA and the INDIA MPs actually came face to face. It was an unprecedented drama at the Makar Dwar. Your channel was the first to break the visuals of BJP MP Pratap Sarangi being injured. He claimed that Rahul Gandhi had pushed another BJP MP, Lokesh Rajput, who fell on Sarangi and he was seriously injured. Rahul Gandhi countered by saying it was the BJP MPs who actually tried to block entry into Parliament and that he was pushed by them. In fact, he came back and he tried to have a look at what's happening, and the BJP MPs led by Nishikant Dubey and some of the others who were present there in the first line turned around and said, "Is this how you treat? Is this how you push? You've hurt this person. He's an old man and you've hurt him." And Rahul Gandhi says, "I have not done anything. I have not pushed anybody. I was the one who was pushed," and he just quickly walks away from that. That's the visual that you can see there. There was an agreement that there was a scuffle. There was a push and pull. Dhakka mukki hui is something that even Rahul Gandhi accepted. Who pushed? Who charged? Who was actually protesting there? Was there a way towards the right that was cleared, a path that was cleared for the non-protesting MPs to enter Parliament? Did Rahul Gandhi deliberately, led by some of the others after they had finished their protest, barge in right head-on into the BJP group of protesters, and did he create a situation of intimidation or trying to muscle through the BJP? Was there a certain symbolic physical aggression, sign of aggression? Could he have gone from the very side from which he actually went thereafter and then came back? Why create this and who actually started it? These are questions that remain, and it's all subject to inquiry. As the BJP's MPs cornered Rahul Gandhi at the Makar Dwar, the leader of the Lok Sabha was seen, opposition in the Lok Sabha, beg your pardon, was seen walking away. In a press briefing soon after, Union Minister Kiran Rijiju claimed that Rahul Gandhi had injured not only one, but in an unprecedented misconduct had left two BJP MPs quite badly wounded, including Pratap Sarangi and Mukesh Rajput. They were soon rushed to the Delhi's RML Hospital, Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, at about 12:15 p.m. Union ministers, including Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Prahlad Joshi, Piyush Goyal, they met the injured MPs at the RML Hospital. Meanwhile, Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge on Thursday wrote to the Lok Sabha Speaker on Om Birla, claiming he was physically pushed by BJP MPs on the Parliament premises, following which he lost his balance. Kharge asked the Lok Sabha Speaker to order an inquiry into the BJP MPs pushing him, saying it was an assault, not just